Alright guys, g'day, welcome back. A couple of days ago I did a tier list for Dokkanfest exclusive TURs, plus a couple from Dragon Ball Heroes. Today we are taking on Dokkanfest exclusive LRs, but I'm also including Carnival LRs, so basically any exclusive LR, if that makes sense. As I did the other day, I had a little bit of a tier down the bottom that kind of sits outside everything for the units that I don't own. I just don't feel comfortable kind of ranking them. I'll maybe throw them into a tentative tier just in terms of like how I think they might play out. But again, I'm not really comfortable kind of hard ranking them for now. Now we're going to go from the bottom all the way up. We'll kind of try and breeze through the bottom tiers and then kind of go through more detail as we get to the pointy end. So at the bottom of the pack, we've got the fodder units, basically Evolution Blue Vegeta, the STR Super Vegito unit from the Worldwide Celebration a few years ago, and the Evolution Blue and Kaioken Blue Goku from Tanabata a few years ago. Basically, they're just not going to do any good on your teams. Vegeta needs to take a few hits to build up some damage reduction that only lasts a turn, but taking those hits will get you killed, almost certainly. The Goku and Vegeta unit here, they have a little bit of utility in terms of a heal and a scouter once they transform, but to be frank, they're probably the reason you need the heal in the first place, and by the time they get that off, the scouter is probably not going to do you any good because normals will still kill them anyway, even with the counters. The blue duo here, look, they need rainbows to do additionals to build up their defense on super, but even still, they're not going to get you too far. Their damage really doesn't cut it, even to make up for their lack of defense. And with the active skill where their damage is kind of at its height, it nerfs their defense entirely anyway. And unfortunately, that's probably not going to change with an Easy A, as active skills cannot change on Easy A. So yeah, these three are waiting for Easy A's, especially the blue duo. They need something special to be any good. So as it stands, without their Easy A, they are nothing but fodder. The filler tier just above them, look, this is still a low tier, so don't think that they're going to be a significant amount better. The argument could be made to move any of these units into fodder, though. To compare the Goku and Vegeta unit straight up, basically the Gogeta versus Vegito, the rainbow orb changing from the Gogeta unit plus the damage reduction after being fused is kind of the difference between the two, in my opinion. So I did want to separate them where I could, so I did. Same with the UI Goku versus Evolution Blue Vegeta. Now, if UI Goku gets touched, he dies. It's pretty much as simple as that. However, he does have just a flat 70% chance to dodge. So there is that kind of level of usability where if you have to fill a position in a team with a unit that can make it work, he's one that can kind of make it work if he wants to be hidden and then dodge any stray attacks that might be shot his way as he floats off each rotation that he appears. Full Power Frieza and Buu are kind of similar in that they both stack defense on their 18 key super. Now that's probably not enough for them to be any unit that you would consider to be good. However, it does give them a little bit of usability. Their links are not too bad. Buu has a little bit of a heal going on as well, and Frieza has a decent team to run with also. They probably both need to be hidden for the most part, but I still feel like they're slightly more usable than any of the units in the tier below, hence why they are in the filler tier. In the tier above that is what we call the fringe tier. Namek Goku and the Worldwide Celebration Goku and Vegeta from last year. Again, these units, despite being higher than the rest, are not in a tier that I would consider high to start with. Goku here, stacking defense on his 12 key with additionals built in, gives him that option to have, a little bit of play if things work out your way. Air of effect enemies are probably going to give him a hard time, but yeah, look, I see his damage is good enough to where you might be able to jimmy him around. Really good links as well, as most LR Super Saiyan Gokus have. The Super Saiyan Duo are just a horribly disappointing unit. Visually spectacular. I think all their animations are really, really fantastic, and they're honestly, because of that, a really disappointing unit for me. Their transformation or morale boost conditions are just so ridiculous to get off, and you're basically fighting to get that transformation so that they can retain the buffs that they lose in base. It's just a wonky design, and they do decent damage with a bit of crit and an additional built-in, but unfortunately that's really not enough to save them. Yeah, look, they're better than those below them, but still no real quality comes from them, I don't think. I really like using them where I can, but I'm usually jumping through hoops to make them look good, and 9 times out of 10 the hoops just aren't there for them to jump through. So yeah, they're just really annoying. Above them, I do put the Metal Cooler from the same celebration. Again, I wouldn't consider him to be a high tier unit. I do think he's better than any of the units below him. With the revive, with the healing that he has solid enough damage. He's mostly a floating unit. He has decent links as well. So I think you can, like the tier suggests, in the right conditions, he might be a unit that brings you a little bit of value and utility to the team, but still not necessarily a unit I would consider fantastic, especially when we're talking about exclusive LRs, especially in the modern era. Now, in the solid tier, I have the 2 Dokkanfests from that same worldwide celebration that brought us Metal Cooler and the Super Saiyans. So the Carnival Goku and the it's Carnival Goku, and Dokkanfest Cooler. I think they're solid. They have probably aged out a bit, and by that I mean that they can still perform in majority of the difficult content that the game offers, though a lot of the units that have released since then have really outshone them. And I think that's probably where this solid tier fits. A lot of these units can be used quite handily. I mean, they can be caught out as well, which is why they're not in a tier any higher. But, you know, you let Cooler get a few attacks off, and if the additionals fall your way and end up being supers, he's quite a solid unit with really, really ridiculous damage when he gets going, and a defense stat that is worthy enough of a trade-off from the damage that he has. With a really good active skill and really solid links, I think he's a solid unit. The revive from Goku here to guarantee his guard really comes in handy as well, and also works in conjunction quite smoothly almost with the World Tournament Goku, who leads Powerful Comeback and also needs a unit on the team to revive, and this Carnival Goku can be that unit if you want him to be. The Carnival Gohan from the 8th anniversary, I think he's quite good. He needs quite a few hits to be good, which is a bit tricky because usually a lot of those hits are targeted towards slot 1. He gets damage reduction from the unit that he attacks, providing he gets an 18 key super. So basically his damage reduction is only active versus one enemy in slot 2 or 3. But regardless, I like him. I think he's quite solid. He does a decent job, and if you can get a few hits in early, maybe when the enemy isn't at their strongest, he can build up his defense quite handily. He does stack on his 18 key super as well, both attack and defense. And then the other Carnival Super Saiyan Goku, or LR5 guys, as the community sometimes affectionately calls him, also needs hits. Really only needs 5 for his passive to be maxed out. Needs 10 to have the Scouter. He has 30% damage reduction just flat out, so I think he is... These tiers aren't ordered, by the way. It's just the tiers. Within the tiers, there is no order to go through. I think I tried to order them in terms of release date, but obviously I've stuffed up here by putting Gohan at the back, so that doesn't even work anyway. But yeah, the Carnival's STR Super Saiyan Goku, I think he's quite good. He's got an additional built-in. He raises his defense on Super. With a little bit with 30% damage reduction in his passive and a bit of build up going on, he can do a solid job as well with his 50% defense support and 3 key to superclass allies. He's quite a good option, especially as a floater if you can get him built up early. Now to the pointy end. This is your high tier. There's one tier above them, but this is the units that you find difficult to leave off teams that maybe just are missing that X factor that stops them from being in the tier above. So the Blue Goku and Vegeta, who are a Vegito unit, the reason they're probably not higher, I mean, if they were the Vegito alone, they would be in the top tier. However, the Goku and Vegeta unit, whilst still really, really good, just have that little bit of a nuance negativity to them where their conditions to turn into Vegito are a little bit janky. If you're not at that HP threshold in turn 5, you don't have your guard anymore, so they can really get caught out quite easy. That's why they're a little bit, they're just that tier below the top. Otherwise, a really good unit. Their damage is a little bit, leaves a little bit to be desired in slot 1, but I think that works in their favor as they need to stack up, and so does probably the rest of the team in those early phases. So I personally don't think that's as much of a negative as what other players do, but I would understand if you don't like that personally. Zamasu from the same celebration, the opposite Dokkanfest exclusive. He is basically a victim of being an extreme class unit where he is as good as they get, but is just lacking the team to support him. In all honesty, if we were ranking rotations, he and the Easy A AGL Zamasu would be a top tier rotation. But if you hypothetically got this LR Zamasu and you don't have the Easy A AGL Zamasu, you're probably going to find that this Zamasu leaves a little bit to be desired, and that's kind of that X factor that I think he's missing in an overall sense for me. Not to take anything away from him, he's just not the top tier, but he's still a very high tier unit. AGL Goku, the Carnival exclusive from the 8th anniversary, the counterpart to the Gohan there, also needs hits to build up, as so does Zamasu, I should have mentioned. But I think he's really good. He builds up his ki, he builds up his defense, he has a little bit of attack once he gets going. He has a counter super if it's a ki blast super directed at him. It's a high chance, I believe, 50 or 70% chance. I think it's only a 50% chance, but still, I think he's a really good unit. The thing that probably holds him back a little bit is the fact that he is a Goku unit, means he doesn't have too many good linking partners, and the ones that you would really want him to link with share the same name, so can't really link with him. Though I'll use that as a good way to segue into probably his best linking partner, which is LR Physical Ultimate Gohan. Look, cops a lot of flack within the community for not being a beast Gohan, obviously only having that as his active skill, but that active skill I think is quite useful. Having the action break, also counting as an attack to build up his passive. Look, there are things, like I said, there's just that X factor he's missing. The additional that he has built into his passive is locked behind being at 20 ki, and is also locked behind a 70% chance of being a super. So that can really hinder him in the sense that he can fall behind his build up. He needs 5 total super attacks and has only the opportunity of 3 at the max per turn. So it's technically impossible to have him built up coming into a turn with his intro still active. So that to me just stops him from being a top tier unit, though I find it really difficult to leave him off teams anyway. I really like him, he's a good unit. The 8th anniversary Z Duo, or Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta, they rely on raw defense. Now, you can get their standby out pretty early, I understand that, but I think there is a catch-22 with their standby. You want them to stack their defense as quick as possible, and when they get going, they stack it very quickly. However, usually you're kind of at a point where they're building their crit as well, so you start mowing down the enemy really quickly in those early phases. So before you've actually got a chance to build up your defense to a satisfactory level, they're actually falling behind because the enemy's getting stronger anyway. But if you get that standby out, they are relatively safe. The problem then therein lies where if you get that Spirit Bomb off too early and you get it off, they've got no crit built into their standby, so that that standby finish skill can actually hit like a little bit of a wet blanket at times. And then if you come out of that standby, you've basically wasted a turn or two that you could have otherwise used to stack with them, so they can find themselves falling behind their defense stacking as well. There's an awkwardness to them, and that's kind of that X factor that I think that they're missing. Not to say that they're a bad unit, they're still quite high in the tier list. There is just something about them that makes them fall behind the top tier units overall. Trunks and Vegeta, I think, are a very good unit as well. Kind of falling behind a little bit in the sense that they need to take shots to build up their passive, and in some of the more recent content, taking those shots can hurt, even though they do have guard. But once they've got a couple of stacks, which they stack their defense on their 18 ki super, so if they can almost be hidden for a couple of turns, get a couple of stacks in, then take a couple of shots, you'll find that they really start to put in a really decent defensive effort, especially with that guard. It's a shame that the guard is technically locked behind the intro passive, which could expire, or being locked to slot 1. that's not the worst thing in the world, but depending on how you build your team, you might want to find them floating or in slot 2 or things like that. But that's not to say they're bad in any way, shape, or form. Still a very high tier unit in my opinion. Really, really like them. I probably should use them more. Now the 7th anniversary units, look, it's pretty easy to talk about them together now. They both have really, really high tier partners. The Gods link 7 out of 7 links with the blue duo who fuses into Vegito. They don't share 7 out of 7 once they fuse, but still really good regardless. When they transform the God duo there, they get their dodge with more dodge coming from Rainbow Orbs. They have the action break. They got the built-in additional. They do an awful lot. They're not a slot 1 unit, though you could kind of risk it if you wanted to. Get a couple of dodges in those first few shots before attacking, then attack, and then you're kind of pretty safe for the most part after performing a Ultra and then a follow-up 12 key super. The Super Saiyan 4s likewise got a really good partner who we're yet to mention, but same sort of thing. Instead of building up dodge, they get a little bit of extra damage reduction from Rainbow Orbs once transformed, but also with the action break, the potential for 2 to 3 attacks, which all raise defense as well. They put in a really solid effort if you find them with a good partner on the right team. Now, just to go into the final, the highest tier, the top tier, it's a very kind of narrow set of units, but I think it's all pretty justified. Future Gohan is just, look, Future Gohan and Piccolo, in my opinion, I've never been so satisfied with 2 units that are to be called even. I think they are so even, those 2 units, and they are so well-rounded. And I mean, well-rounded is really the theme of the top tier, plus a little bit of an X factor. But Gohan and Piccolo, just their defense is so safe, their offense is so powerful. They've got that little bit of utility in the domain on Gohan's side of things, the little bit of extra ki that Piccolo gets on his side, plus a heal if you really get it off, though I don't see that heal too often because frankly he doesn't need it. But Future Gohan and Piccolo, oh, chef's kiss, they are fantastic units, very deserving of being in the top tier. Then you've got, I'm just going to go on the, I'm going to save Super Saiyan 4 Goku for last, but the GT duo here, I think there is a fair gap between them and the Z duo. That's why I wanted them separate. The GT duo need no links to perform. They stack their attack, which you would probably look at on paper and think, well, that's not as good as the Z duo who stack defense. But instead of building up crit per super attack, they build up damage reduction to a max of 50%. Also raising their defense on super for just the 1 turn. They can just float, they can do their thing, and it's fine. Then you get to their standby, which I think is by far and away better than what the Z duos is, given that it supports, it's a revive. I feel more comfortable with everything that the GT duo do in comparison to the Z duo. They almost never fail me, the GT duo. There are instances where they get caught out, especially early, where they haven't had an opportunity to stack their damage reduction through their passive. But, I mean, if you play your cards right and RNG doesn't screw you over, which it can do to almost any unit in the game, the GT duo are just a super, super reliable unit, and huge fan. Then, arguably my favorite unit in the game, so you're more than welcome to call bias for this one, but I do think that the LR Super Saiyan 4 Full Power Goku here is a top tier unit. He does need to get that hit early to get that little bit of extra defense. He's also very slot 1 orientated, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for him to perform defensively at his heights if you float him or if you put him in slot 2, though I don't think that's such a negative where I'd knock him down a tier. Getting his standby off is relatively easy. It usually takes you 2 turns. Sometimes if you're lucky it takes you 1, and if you're really unlucky that 5 dodge can come in and ruin everything. But I feel like that's a minority of circumstances as opposed to a majority of circumstances. Once you get that standby, he, like the Z duo I mentioned before him, he supports. However, he supports defense to all allies for 2 turns. So the turn that you get that standby off, everyone's more defensive. The following turn where he's not appearing, everyone's more defensive. I think that is a hugely valuable feature that he has in his standby. And then when he comes out of that standby, ooh, look out. He tears things to bits. He's got guaranteed guard. Even if it is for 1 turn, he's still very, very good with damage reduction prior to attacking, with a little bit remaining after he attacks in both forms. I do think he is a top tier unit, though I would understand if some of you might think that maybe he's more similar to someone like the blue duo, where very slot 1 orientated in base, not easy enough to put them into other slots before transforming. So I can sort of see those arguments for changing things around. But these are my rankings. Look, I change my mind every 5 minutes, to be perfectly honest, but I was pretty comfortable with how everything played out here. Let me know what you think, how different your tier list would be to mine. Let me know if I forgot any units as well. I was looking at everything and I'm pretty sure everything was pretty safe. Let me know what of the selections here were as like the farthest away from your decision. Like, I feel like most placements here would only be off by one tier, depending on who you talk to in terms of differing opinions. But if there's any units that are 2 or more tiers away from where you would rank them, let me know. I'm very curious to hear like different opinions on all this. If I was going to quickly rank the units that I don't own, I actually think I would put these guys here for now. If we got new content that was any longer than what the current meta kind of is, they would drop ever so slightly, I think, but for now they can be in the top tier. Trunks, I'm going to tentatively put here. I think he's akin to the blue duo, where in base he leaves a little bit to be desired, but once he's in his standby, he's a monster. And Omega, I'm probably tempted to put down here with Metal Cooler. So that would be my tentative picks for the units that I don't own. However, like I said, I don't own them, so those rankings are very, very in flux until I get them and give them a good test for myself. As I said, guys, you can find me anywhere to have a chat. Let me know what you think of my rankings. Instagram, Twitter, Discord, all the links are below. If you want to support me a little bit more, other than subscribing and liking, you can support me on Instagram for about $5 a month. Same with on Ko-Fi. I'd appreciate it. It helps keep the lights on. It helps me make more content more often. But obviously, don't go beyond your means. Only the stuff that you find down the side of the couch or in the washing machine that have fallen out of your pockets. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.